Perhaps I will ask you a question related to, you know, some perception sometimes about IMI, and I hope that today we will in a position to correct this perception. You know, some people will argue that IMI is a way for large pharmaceutical companies to capture knowledge in academia, in SMEs, and not to reward in a fair way, you know, their contribution. So may I ask, perhaps not to the large pharma, but to the others, to react to these and to tell us about how they see indeed their relation with the large pharmaceutical companies?
In fact, fine. I have to say that, first of all, obviously in the initial discussions about the exploitation of IP to be produced during the project, obviously it was not extremely easy, but not extremely difficult. And we have to discuss in a frank way and to look for fair agreements. But I think everybody is rather satisfied with the agreements we reach in terms of to find ways to compensate to some extent aspects of the effort put, for instance, for small and medium enterprises that were not directly declared in the guidelines for IPR exploitation, but not also directly forbidden. So, and we found a way to manage this. Second, I have to confess that I am really positively impressed by the collaboration we are carrying out in our consortium and the way in which the pharmaceutical companies, as well as the academic partners and SMEs, are committed with the project. I had previous experiences of participation of pharma companies, big pharma companies, in typical framework program projects, and they were there a little passive in terms of, okay, wait and see what happens in the project and so on. In this particular case, in the IMI projects, the pharmaceutical companies play a much more active role and are really committed with the advance, with the innovation to be carried out, and the way in which the dynamics of the consortium is established for me is extremely positive. And I think it's not only my personal feeling, I think it's the feeling of all the partners. They see that this is a very serious initiative in which everybody, all the partners, are completely committed to advance in real innovation.
Thank you. Ferran, there is a question in the back.
Thank you. Magda Rosenmüller from Jesse Business School. My question would be, how do you find your partners for those who are involved? Do you use existing networks? Do you use a research tool? And as well, we talked about excellence before. How do you assure that these partners are really at the level of excellence you want them to be? So that I would be really interested to see that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, in the case of Endocells, we had, as I mentioned, we had a long-term collaboration with 2 academic partners. We were also interested to answer this call and to enter into such large collaboration. You have to know that you go through various selection criteria and you stay, I mean, in the course for the call only if you are good or very good and if you have something to deliver.
Okay, in my particular case, I proceed, obviously, if you are more or less an expert in a particular field, you know your colleagues, the other experts, at least at the European level. So if you don't know experts in your field at the European level, maybe you are not an expert. This is a point. So for me, it was not difficult to make a list, okay, this guy is good, that guy is good, or that lady, or that small, medium enterprise. And then to check if this is really true, we have different ways. For instance, in the case of the academicians, You can go to Web of Knowledge or to Medline and to look for the recent publications and so on. And in the case of small, medium enterprises, it's just to ask, okay, to what extent they have products, they have services that are appreciated by the big pharmas or by the academic world or things like this. So, and again, if you are expert in one particular field, you know the small, medium enterprise, small, medium enterprises working in this field. If you have to go to databases to find the partners for a particular project, maybe you are in a not very strong position in the field.
I mean, one of the other things which I think is very clear is what are the goals of the project? And I think you asked us before, what's excellency? And the answer to that, there isn't excellency in the project. I think these are what I believe the best people trying to deliver the results. And that's, if you will, the definition of excellency in that context. And by doing that, I think they achieve high scientific excellency. But it's really, if you will, project goal delivered to it.
Perhaps I would, yeah.
Yeah. Tom Suteja from Amsterdam. How can you be so sure in marriage? Sometimes you find the best partner, but it doesn't work out. So can I conclude that you have been successful and you have never dropped any partner that is not fulfilling the excellence and performance you expected?
I mean, okay, you are absolutely right with your partnership and marriage. But it's a marriage of a group of people, so that's kind of interesting. I think you make it work. I mean, that's the bottom line. You need to say, okay, we are in here forever, means 5 years. And I think the approach needs to be, what do we need to do to make it work? And I think one of the things you have to ask yourself, and that is part of your I think, self-assessment, as you said, is what does success mean for the project? And what does success mean for me within that project? And I think by answering these two things and by aligning it with the others, you have a pretty high chance of going towards an operational team.
I have a question. How this project connect with the community, and particularly with the patient organizations in the past, what has been the role of the patient organization, and how IMI envisages the role of the patient or parents organization in the future projects?
Yeah. This is a critical question, and obviously we hope with the last topic that is launched today that we will find a way certainly to increase the participation of patients' organization, because we must be consistent if we want our project to be patient-centric. It's critical to hear better, to listen more to patients, and we are really working on this, and we hope that this topic in particular will help. Having said that, we have already, they are not coordinating the project, that's why they are not there today, but we will organize to have also testimonies of this organization. For example, in the pharmacovigilance project, the PROTECT projects, the patients, which is, I think, the International Alliance of Patients, is really playing an important role. So I think that it's really important, first, that patients' organization themselves, looking at the project and at the topics, take initiative and establish links with other potential partners. And this might be true, I would say, for each of the topic. And actually, for the first call project, we have already a number, as I said, of projects in which patients' organizations are involved. But I can tell you that I hope that at our next Info Day, this seat will be busy with a member of a patient organization, possibly coordinating a project. If I may come, sorry, please.
Thank you, Michel. I'm Mark Cantillon from the Critical Path Institute, a US a somewhat similar version of what you're doing here in Europe. I just had a question, if I may use the opportunity, for Dr. Sanz. Our model is slightly different than yours in that we don't have as many academics involved in the contractual way. So we do have academics coming in various projects, let's say CNS or in safety, during the term of the project. Do you allow that? I understood that the marriage or divorce question we had before, that you had a set of people that needed to stay on the project. But let's say you discover over the course of the project that you need to bring in another expert on the safety side or on the diabetes side. How do you handle that?
In principle, it is actually foreseen in all the agreements to do that. I think it's then the details how you do it, but the principle, it's there. The principle is to add participants, and of course you have to then talk about the allocation of work and funding. But it is, by its nature, not a closed system.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Thank you.
And we've already seen that in a couple of projects, and even in the education and training project, for example, we saw during the development of pan-European courses. One of the tasks we are working on is how can we make a good education, high-quality education on pharmaceutical development, drug development sciences available all across Europe. And we have a couple of participants from Eastern European countries, but not covering everything. And so what we did then was to develop, during the course of the project, an idea of adding an additional collaborative master program involving now countries like Turkey, Israel, Romania, etc. So this will be kind of a second layer. They will be attached to the project. They will participate in the content development. We do not yet have a good way of giving them access to some kind of funding. But if you have a very interesting goal and enthusiastic participants, you find a way somewhere. And maybe the funding can also then come from the institutions and outside IMI.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. How many competitors typically participate in a topic at the first level, at the second level?
Thank you for the question. At the first level, it really depends on the topic. What I can tell you for our experience of the second call, for example, for the cancer topics, we had some topics with, I think, more than 20 consortium, which means that for this particular topic, it's really a tough competitions. So it might vary, from 4, 5 to 20. For this particular call, we will see. So it means, and that's a very important question, that indeed at stage 1, the competition is really serious. Obviously, at stage 2, we have only one project that we analyze, because after stage 1, and I want to specify this, we only select the first ranked project to meet with the pharmaceutical company to develop the final full project proposal, which is submitted to evaluation. The reason for that, there are several reasons, but one of the reasons is that obviously it's difficult to ask the companies to prepare, it's a lot of work, all these projects at the same time with a quite tight time frame. Having said that, we are currently considering, because we want to be IMI open, it's open innovation, and we know that in the course of a 5-year project, there might be important new partners to be included. So we are working, and we have close collaboration with the Commission to indeed have the flexibility in the rules in order to, in the future, have the opportunity, certainly on the basis of a competitive process, but to include new partners in the project eligible for funding. This has not happened yet, but we are working on this at our office and obviously in close liaison with the Commission, because there are some legal and financial rules that we have to follow there. But I think that there is an agreement between us to explore this possibility.